My daughter abandoned me for her affluent stepfather when she was just 12 years old, asking me to relinquish my parental rights so he could adopt her. Now, a decade later at 22, she is destitute and wants to reconnect after her mother's passing and being cast out by her stepdad. This is the tumultuous journey of a father grappling with betrayal, loss, and the complexities of forgiveness. 12 years ago, my life took an unexpected and devastating turn. At the time, I was 45 years old, and my then-wife, Sarah, was 41. We had been married for 15 years, sharing what I believed was a stable and loving relationship. Our daughter, Lara, was the light of my life, a vibrant, joyful girl who brought immeasurable happiness into our home. I worked tirelessly, juggling 2 jobs to provide for my family. While our finances were tight, I made sure we always had a decent meal on the table and a roof over our heads. Sarah preferred to be a stay-at-home mom, taking care of the household and nurturing Lara. Despite the financial strain, I never pressured her to find employment. I understood her desire to be there for Lara, to create a warm and nurturing environment for our daughter. However, beneath the surface, tensions were brewing. Sarah yearned for a more luxurious lifestyle, one that my modest income couldn't support. She began expressing dissatisfaction, comparing our situation to that of her friends who enjoyed more affluent lives. One fateful day, when Lara was just 10, Sarah confessed she had been having an affair with a wealthy man named Richard. The revelation hit me like a ton of bricks. The woman I had loved and trusted had found solace in the arms of someone else, someone who could offer her the opulence she craved. She moved out that very day, and we initiated divorce proceedings soon after. The betrayal was profound, but my primary concern was Lara's well-being. We agreed to co-parent Lara, with the arrangement that she would stay with me on weekends. Despite my demanding schedule, I cherished every moment we spent together. Lara and I had a special bond. We embarked on adventure trips, exploring nature trails, camping under the stars, and creating memories that I hoped would last a lifetime. These weekends were my sanctuary, a respite from the pain of the divorce. However, as time passed, I noticed subtle changes in Lara's behavior. Initially, she would eagerly send me emails every Friday, detailing the exciting activities she wanted us to try over the weekend. Her enthusiasm was infectious, and planning these outings became the highlight of my week. But gradually, the tone of her messages shifted. The emails became sporadic, and when they did arrive, they were filled with apologies and cancellations. "Sorry, Dad, I can't make it this weekend. We're going skiing," or "We're going on a trip with Richard." At first, I dismissed my concerns, telling myself that her stepfather was simply trying to be a positive influence in her life. Perhaps he was offering her experiences I couldn't afford, and I didn't want to stand in the way of her happiness. But as our visits dwindled from weekly to bi-weekly, then to monthly, I couldn't ignore the growing distance between us. When we did spend time together, she seemed distracted, her once bright eyes now distant. One weekend, during a rare visit, I mustered the courage to address the issue. Sitting across from her at our favorite diner, I asked gently, "Is everything okay, sweetheart? You seem different lately." She avoided my gaze, stirring her milkshake absent-mindedly. "Everything's fine, Dad," she replied, but her tone lacked conviction. I tried to express how much our time together meant to me, explaining that I was doing everything in my power to make her happy. "I know things have been tough, but I'm here for you, always," I said earnestly. She simply nodded, her attention seemingly elsewhere. During our outing, she complained about the modest restaurants we visited, comparing them unfavorably to the upscale places Richard took her. "At Richard's favorite spot, they don't even have prices on the menu," she said with a hint of disdain. "We can order anything we want without worrying." Her words stung, but I tried not to show it. "I'm glad you're enjoying new experiences," I replied softly. As weeks turned into months, Lara's visits became even rarer. The final straw came when she ghosted me for over 3 months. My calls went unanswered, my messages ignored. Desperate, I reached out to Sarah, but she offered no explanation. "She's a teenager now," she said dismissively. "She has her own life." Feeling helpless, I consulted my lawyer, who informed me that I could pursue legal action against Sarah for alienation of affection. However, he cautioned that if Lara expressed a desire not to see me, the court might side with her, and I could potentially face increased child support payments. Despite my financial struggles, I was still providing child support, even though Richard was lavishing her with expensive gifts and trips. Determined to resolve the situation, I agreed to my lawyer's suggestion of an out-of-court meeting. We sent a formal notice to Sarah, detailing our concerns and requesting a discussion. To my surprise, she agreed. The meeting was set at a neutral location, and I arrived hopeful that we could find a way to repair my relationship with Lara. Entering the room, I saw Sarah, Richard, and Lara seated across the table. Sarah looked as poised as ever, her designer clothes and jewelry a stark contrast to my worn suit. Richard's presence was imposing. He exuded confidence, his expensive watch gleaming under the fluorescent lights. Lara sat between them, her expression unreadable. After brief introductions, Sarah and Richard stated that they had no involvement in Lara's decision-making and that she should speak for herself. "We're here to support whatever Lara wants," Sarah said coolly. Taking a deep breath, I turned to Lara. "Sweetheart, I've missed you. Can you tell me what's going on?" She looked up, her eyes cold and distant. "I want you to give up your parental rights," she said bluntly. The words hung in the air like a heavy fog, suffocating and surreal. I was stunned. My heart pounded in my chest, and a wave of nausea washed over me. "What do you mean?" I stammered. "Do you understand what that entails?" She nodded, her gaze unwavering. "I want Richard to adopt me, and he can't do that unless you relinquish your rights." Sarah sat silently, a subtle smirk playing at the corners of her mouth. Richard gave Lara an encouraging nod. I felt a mixture of anger, despair, and betrayal. Fighting back tears, I reached across the table to take Lara's hand. "Lara, you're my daughter. I love you more than anything. Please reconsider." She pulled her hand away, her expression hardened. "I've already made up my mind," she said firmly. "This is what I want." My lawyer intervened, attempting to explain the legal and emotional ramifications of such a decision. He spoke of inheritance rights, the permanence of severing our legal relationship, but Lara remained unmoved. "I don't care about any of that," she insisted. Defeated, I realized there was little I could do. The people I had once considered family were now united against me. Sarah and Richard seemed pleased, their objective achieved. In the days that followed, I spiraled into a deep depression. The loss was overwhelming. Not only had I lost my wife, but now my daughter had chosen to erase me from her life. The weight of it was unbearable. I quit my second job, unable to muster the energy to continue. My performance at my primary job suffered, and I was eventually let go. Consumed by grief, I withdrew from everyone, isolating myself in my empty home. My parents, sensing something was wrong, reached out. When I told them what had happened, they were shocked and heartbroken. My mother, who had always been close to Lara, tried to intervene. She reached out to Lara, hoping to bridge the gap, but Lara was resolute in her decision. "Grandma, it's better this way," Lara told her. "Richard can provide for me in ways Dad never could." "Money isn't everything, dear," my mother pleaded. "Your father loves you unconditionally." Lara shrugged. "Love doesn't buy me the things I need." Realizing I needed help, I sought therapy. It was a slow and arduous process, but gradually, I began to rebuild my life. I moved to a new town, hoping a change of scenery would help me heal. I found a new job, one that reignited my passion for my work. I took up hiking and solo trekking, finding solace in nature's embrace. The mountains became my sanctuary, the trails a path to self-discovery. It was on one of these treks that I met Brianna. She was spirited and kind, with a laugh that could light up a room. She too had faced her share of hardships, raising her 5-year-old daughter, Emma, on her own. We connected instantly, sharing stories of our past and hopes for the future. As our relationship blossomed, I found myself opening up in ways I hadn't thought possible. Meeting Emma was both joyful and painful. She reminded me so much of Lara at that age, curious, bright-eyed, full of wonder. At first, I kept my distance, afraid of getting hurt again. But Emma had a way of breaking down barriers with her infectious smile and endless questions. Over time, a bond formed between us. On her 12th birthday, Emma surprised me by asking if I would adopt her. The moment was overwhelming. Tears welled up in my eyes as I embraced her. "Nothing would make me happier," I whispered. Life began to feel complete again. Brianna and I married, and we welcomed another daughter, Amy, into our family. The house was filled with laughter and love, the shadows of the past slowly receding. Then, one evening, as I was walking home from work, I noticed someone standing across the street, staring at me. As she stepped into the light, I realized it was Lara. My heart skipped a beat. She looked different, older, more worn, but there was no mistaking her. She approached hesitantly, a tentative smile on her face. "Dad," she said softly. "I've been looking for you." A whirlwind of emotions surged within me, shock, anger, confusion. "I think you have the wrong person," I replied coolly. "I don't have a daughter named Lara." She reached out, her eyes pleading. "Please, I know I've hurt you, but I need to talk to you." I took a step back. You made your choice years ago. I suggest you respect mine now. With that, I turned and walked away, leaving her standing alone on the sidewalk. The next day, she showed up at my doorstep. When I opened the door, she began to speak rapidly, her words tumbling over each other. Mom's dead. Richard kicked me out. He's moved his girlfriend in, and he wants nothing to do with me. I have nowhere else to go. I listened quietly, emotions swirling. Part of me wanted to comfort her, to offer the support she was seeking. But another part remembered the pain of her rejection. I'm sorry for your loss, I said evenly. But I can't help you. Please, she begged. I was young and foolish. I didn't understand what I was doing. You're my father. I met her gaze. I was your father once. You made it clear you didn't want me in your life. She began to cry, but I felt numb. I think it's best if you leave, I said, closing the door gently. Later, I learned she had visited my mother, pleading her case. My mother, ever the compassionate soul, urged me to give Lara another chance. People make mistakes, she said softly. She's your daughter. She stopped being my daughter when she asked me to give up my rights, I replied. She made her choice. But doubts gnawed at me. Was I being too harsh? Could I find it in my heart to forgive? In the days that followed, I decided to meet with Lara one more time. We agreed to meet at a cafe in town. As I sat across from her, I noticed how tired she looked. Gone was the confident girl who had so coldly dismissed me years ago. I want to understand, I began. Why now? Why come back after all this time? She sighed deeply. After Mom died, everything fell apart. Richard stopped caring. He cut me off financially, told me to fend for myself. I realized I had no one else. Did you ever think to reach out before? I asked. In all these years, did you once consider contacting me? She looked down. I was embarrassed. Ashamed. I didn't know how to face you. I considered her words. Lara, I won't pretend that what happened didn't hurt me deeply. But I'm willing to try to move forward, with some conditions. Her eyes lit up. Anything. First, you need to stand on your own feet. Get a job, further your education. I can help guide you, but I won't support you financially. She nodded slowly. I understand. Second, we need to rebuild trust. That will take time. She reached across the table, her hand trembling. Thank you, she whispered. Over the next few weeks, I began to piece together more of Lara's story. She admitted that her mother had manipulated her into asking me to give up my parental rights. Mom said you'd never be able to provide the life I deserved, she confessed. She wanted to hurt you, to make you feel insignificant. Why would she do that? I asked, pain evident in my voice. She resented you, Lara explained. She blamed you for not giving her the life she wanted. Richard was her way out, and she wanted me to be part of that new life. Hearing this was both devastating and enlightening. It reopened old wounds but also provided clarity. I was a child, Lara continued, tears streaming down her face. I didn't know any better. I was influenced by her words, her promises. I sighed heavily. I wish you had realized sooner. Me too, she whispered. Deciding to give her the benefit of the doubt, I agreed to help her get back on her feet. I assisted her in enrolling in a community college program and helped her find a part-time job at a local bookstore. She moved into a modest apartment nearby, determined to prove she could be independent. Brianna and I discussed the situation at length. She was supportive but cautious. I just don't want you to get hurt again, she said softly. I understand, I replied. But I feel it's the right thing to do. Introducing Lara to Emma and Amy was another step. Emma was hesitant, sensing the tension, but Amy, being only 3, was delighted to have someone new to play with. As months passed, Lara showed genuine effort in turning her life around. She excelled in her classes, often sharing her excitement about new subjects she was learning. Our relationship slowly mended, built on honest conversations and mutual respect. One evening, as we sat on the porch watching the sunset, Lara turned to me. I can't thank you enough for giving me another chance. I smiled gently. Everyone deserves a second chance. She hesitated before asking, do you think we can ever truly be father and daughter again? I considered her question. It won't be easy, and it won't happen overnight. But I'm willing to try if you are. She nodded, a hopeful glint in her eyes. I am. In the end, forgiveness isn't about forgetting the past, it's about choosing to move beyond it. While the scars remain, they serve as reminders of our resilience and capacity for healing. My journey with Lara taught me that sometimes, the hardest battles lead to the most profound growth. Though our relationship may never be what it once was, we are forging a new path, one built on understanding, forgiveness, and the shared desire to move forward. My girlfriend, who is usually shy and dislikes social media, has a secret 8-year-old Reddit account where she spends her time bullying people daily. She becomes upset when downvoted and even lies about her appearance to demean others. For context, I'm a 35-year-old man, and she's 37. I recently discovered a troubling secret about my girlfriend that has left me questioning everything I thought I knew about her. She's always been reserved, someone who avoids social media like the plague. She suffers from agoraphobia, rarely venturing outside without me by her side. We've been together for several years now, sharing a quiet life filled with routine and comfort. I thought I knew her intimately, her likes, her dislikes, her fears. But I was wrong. Yesterday, I came home from work earlier than usual. As I opened the front door, I heard her laughter echoing from the study. It was a delightful sound, one that always brought a smile to my face. Curious, I made my way towards the room, thinking she might be watching a comedy or perhaps on a video call with a friend. Peeking around the corner, I saw her seated at the desk, headphones on, eyes glued to the computer screen. The soft glow illuminated her face, and she seemed utterly engrossed in whatever she was reading. "Hey there," I said softly, not wanting to startle her. She turned, a mischievous grin spreading across her face. "Oh, you're home early," she exclaimed. "Yeah, the meeting got cancelled," I replied. "What are you up to?" "Just browsing some articles," she said nonchalantly, quickly minimizing the window. I noticed the familiar layout on the screen. It was Reddit. This piqued my interest. She had always expressed disdain for social media platforms, finding them overwhelming and a breeding ground for negativity. "Reddit, huh? Didn't think that was your scene." She shrugged, just exploring some forums, nothing special. I nodded and left it at that, deciding not to pry further. But a nagging curiosity tugged at me. Later that evening, while she was in the shower, I couldn't resist the urge to investigate. I remembered catching a glimpse of her username earlier. Feeling a pang of guilt for invading her privacy, I rationalized that I just wanted to understand what had her so amused. I typed the username into Reddit's search bar, and to my surprise, the account was 8 years old. That meant she had created it before we even met. As I delved into her comment history, my heart sank. Post after post was filled with vitriol and malice. She was attacking strangers, hurling insults, and engaging in heated arguments over trivial matters. It wasn't just occasional snarky remarks, it was a pattern of sustained bullying. In one thread, she spent an entire day berating a user over their choice of hobby, mocking them relentlessly. "Only losers spend their time on such pathetic activities," she had written. In another, she ridiculed someone's appearance, making cruel jokes at their expense. "Maybe if you took care of yourself, people wouldn't be so disgusted," read one of her comments. What shocked me most was her relentless targeting of individuals with disabilities. She belittled their struggles, dismissed their experiences, and used derogatory language. This hit close to home. I have autism, something she's always been supportive of, or so I thought. As I scrolled further, I noticed that she often fabricated stories about herself, presenting a false image to gain sympathy or to belittle others. She claimed to be a successful entrepreneur, a world traveler, even a model. None of which was true. It was as if she lived a double life, a caring, reserved partner in reality, but a spiteful antagonist online. I recalled instances when I'd come home to find her in a foul mood. She'd be irritable, snapping over minor inconveniences. When I'd ask what was wrong, she'd dismiss it, attributing her mood to headaches or fatigue. Now, I realized that her bad days often coincided with days she received numerous downvotes on Reddit. Her self-esteem seemed inexplicably tied to the validation of anonymous strangers. That night, I couldn't sleep. My mind raced with questions. Who was this person I'd been sharing my life with? How could she harbor such negativity and hide it so effectively? I felt a mix of betrayal, confusion, and sadness. The next morning, I decided I needed to address the issue. But I wanted to be cautious. I didn't know how she'd react, and I was concerned about her mental health. I contemplated involving a mutual friend for support but ultimately chose to handle it privately to avoid causing her embarrassment. I waited until after lunch, hoping she'd be more receptive. "Hey, can we talk for a moment?" I asked gently. "Sure," she replied, sensing the seriousness in my tone. I took a deep breath, my heart pounding. "Yesterday, I noticed you were on Reddit. I was surprised because you've always avoided social media. Out of curiosity, I looked up your profile. Her expression shifted instantly. Her eyes widened, and a flush crept up her neck. You what? I know I shouldn't have invaded your privacy, and I'm sorry for that. But what I found, it really concerns me. She stood up abruptly, knocking her chair back. How dare you snoop through my things? Please, just hear me out, I pleaded. I'm not trying to accuse you. I'm worried about you. Worried about what? She snapped. That I have a life outside of you? It's not about that, I said, trying to keep my voice calm. The things you've been posting, they are hurtful. You're bullying people, lying about yourself, attacking those with disabilities. That's not the person I know. She crossed her arms defensively. You don't know anything about me. Then help me understand, I implored. Why are you doing this? She looked away, her jaw clenched. It's just venting. It's not a big deal. Venting is one thing, but this is targeted harassment. It's affecting your mood, your well-being. I see how upset you get when people downvote you. It's consuming you. She scoffed. You're overreacting. It's just the internet. None of it matters. But it does matter, I insisted. It matters because it's causing you distress. And it's hurting others. She threw her hands up in frustration. Why do you care about strangers more than me? It's not about choosing sides, I said softly. I care about you, and I want you to be happy. But this behavior isn't healthy. There was a long silence. Finally, she sank back into the chair, her eyes welling up with tears. You wouldn't understand, she whispered. Then help me try, I said gently. She took a shaky breath. I started using Reddit years ago when I felt isolated. It was a place where I could say anything without judgment. At first, it was just for fun. But then, people started agreeing with me, upvoting my comments. It felt good to be noticed, to have a voice. But why the negativity? I asked. Why attack others? Because it made me feel powerful, she admitted. In real life, I feel invisible, trapped. Online, I can be anyone. I can control the narrative. I reached out to touch her hand. You don't have to hide behind a screen to be heard. You can talk to me, to your friends. We care about you. She pulled her hand away. You don't get it. It's not that simple. Then let's make it simple, I urged. Let's find someone you can talk to, a therapist, perhaps. Maybe they can help you work through these feelings. She glared at me. I don't need therapy. I'm not crazy. I never said you were, I replied calmly. But sometimes we all need a little help. She stood up again, her demeanor shifting back to anger. I can't believe you're judging me like this. Maybe you should look in the mirror before pointing fingers. I'm not judging you, I said, trying to keep my frustration in check. I'm trying to help. Well, I don't want your help, she spat. Just leave me alone. Feeling defeated, I decided to give her some space. All right, I said quietly. I'll be at a friend's place for a few days. Take care. I packed a small bag and left, my emotions a whirlwind of sadness and concern. At my friend's house, I replayed the conversation over and over, wondering if I could have handled it differently. A couple of days later, I received a text from her, I'm sorry about how I reacted. Can we talk? I agreed, hoping she might be open to seeking help. We met at a nearby park, a neutral space where we could have an honest conversation. She looked exhausted, dark circles under her eyes. I've been thinking, she began hesitantly. Maybe you're right. Maybe I do need to talk to someone. I felt a glimmer of hope. I'm glad you're considering it. I just want you to be okay. She nodded, tears welling up. It's just hard. I feel so lost sometimes. We sat down on a bench, and she opened up about her struggles with agoraphobia, her feelings of inadequacy, and how the online persona gave her an escape. But it's become toxic, she admitted. I don't like who I've become. I placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. Acknowledging that is the first step. Over the following weeks, she began seeing a therapist. It was a challenging journey, filled with setbacks and breakthroughs. She deleted her Reddit account, recognizing that it was a harmful outlet for her emotions. Instead, she started journaling, expressing her thoughts in a healthier way. Our relationship began to heal as well. We attended couples counseling to address the trust issues and to learn how to communicate better. It wasn't easy, but we were both committed to making it work. One evening, as we sat together watching the sunset, she turned to me and said, "Thank you for not giving up on me." I smiled softly. We're in this together. Life isn't a fairy tale, and there are still days when she struggles. But now, she faces her challenges head-on, without resorting to hurting others. Our bond has grown stronger through this adversity, and I believe we're both better for it. Discovering her hidden online life was shocking and painful, but it opened the door to addressing deeper issues that she had been suppressing. It's a reminder that people often hide parts of themselves out of fear or insecurity. While her actions were unacceptable, understanding the root cause allowed us to work towards a solution. In the end, it's about choosing empathy over judgment, compassion over condemnation. While not every situation can be resolved, giving someone the chance to heal can lead to unexpected and positive outcomes. Our journey is far from over, but we're walking it together, hand in hand.